This podcast contains some strong language and some stories involving violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to Warfighters United, a podcast where we hear from veteran resources, veteran transitional programs, and veteran voices from your lips to our ears. And I'll be your host. My name's Eric Calley. I'm a former U.S. Marine. And today, I have a very special guest with me, Maj Christopher Buck. This gentleman has 26 years in the Marine Corps. He's also a Mustang, and for you guys that don't know what a Mustang is, he joined the Marine Corps as an enlisted personnel, and then halfway through he decided, you know what, I want to be on the other side, so he turned officer. So, Chris, how you doing today?
Good. Had to go to the dark side, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit on the dark side. All the infantry guys are going, yeah, this motherfucker.
Yeah, at least I stayed on the infantry, though.
Yeah, you stayed on that infantry level. I was just looking at some of the stuff, your history. You've got 6 combat deployments, and the first one being Somalia. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. Like what was Somalia like? We've all watched Black Hawk Down. That show is probably one of the most depicted shows that tells the most truth. What was it like being over there for your first time?
Well, I was amazed when I saw the movie Black Hawk Down. It was probably a year or two after it came out, because how it is. You just you don't care to watch movies where you were actually there. So I wasn't too excited, but I watched it and I could not believe how realistic it was. I mean, the advisors for that, I understand, were Shugart and one of the other guys that were there. So, it was amazing, realistic. But Somalia I was a young meat-eating corporal and squad leader and ready to get in trouble, right? So it was fun. It was my first combat deployment. It was my first real deployment. I'd been in for 2 years at that point. And I will say it was probably one of the best units I was ever with. And you know how it is in the Marine Corps, the military, and you make friends and then you make lifelong friends. And 2 of the guys that another squad leader, Poppert, and then our platoon commander, Bell, 2 of my best friends to this day.
No, I've been there. I still talk to a lot of my friends that are still living, from my deployments and from when I was in 20-some years ago. And it's funny when you talk to Marines, it's like you haven't seen them in 5 years, but when you meet up with them, within 5 minutes, it's like you never left each other. Yep. It's totally amazing.
Yep. And you know what? On the same note, we're horrible at keeping in touch. Thank God for Facebook, man, because I've got guys that I was in the platoon when I was a platoon commander, and guys when I was a company commander, and guys from Somalia back in 93, 94. And thank God for Facebook, because I wouldn't know where they are. I wouldn't know how to get a hold of them. I wouldn't know where they are. And like I said, these 2 guys are, you got brothers that you get out, and that if they called, needed something, you drive cross country and you'd be there the next day.
Oh, yeah. And I've heard you tell me a few stories where, something happens and you drive all the way to Colorado or North Carolina. And I know you're always on the move, And so, how many years were you active infantry?
23 of the 26, and in the Marine Corps' wisdom, my last 3 years in, I got voluntold to go on recruiting duty, so I was the commanding officer for recruiting here in Michigan.
No, you were that guy.
Yeah, you know how it is enlisted, you avoid recruiting like the plague, right?
Yes.
So I even lied at one point to my company first sergeant. I was a sergeant in the HIS team, the team that screens for recruiting came around, and I got snagged, and they said, Buck, go down and get interviewed, and I'm sitting there in front of a gunny, and I knew, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I'm due to rotate my record. I'm going to get snagged. And he says, well, everything looks good. You could probably expect orders next summer. And I said, well, gunny, I'm getting out this November. Can I still get orders? He goes, you're getting out? I said, yeah, I'm going to EAS in November. It was like summertime, June or something. And he says, damn, I got to get the hell out of here. So I leave. About 2 weeks later, I saw First Sergeant, and I said, hey, First Sergeant, I got to fill out re-enlistment papers. He just looked at me all silly and said, how the hell did you get out of his team, by the way? So I don't know. They didn't need me, I guess. But I had to lie and say I was going to get out just to avoid recruiting duty back then when I was enlisted. But, yeah, as an officer, I got snagged. So
Yeah. So, what kind of propelled you to want to become an officer? Not that you're not the best kind of officer, because you Mustangs, you know all the BS that we get put through while we're, enlisted. Right. So you guys actually, you've been there, you've done all the stuff, the stupid stuff that we have to do, the hurry up and, bend down, pick it ups, all the unmotivating stuff. But what possessed you to not only get a higher degree of education, but, did you become an officer? Was it just more leading from the top down, or?
No, I think it was two things. One, I always enjoyed the tactical side of the infantry. I'd love the wargaming and tactics part of being a squad leader, being a platoon sergeant, and so on. And the higher you get enlisted, the further you get away from that. And I knew that was going to happen. And the hardest thing about leaving enlisted, though, was I loved being with and leading Marines and doing the dirty stuff with them. I didn't mind. I loved it. And I really wanted to be a first sergeant. So I had a hard time deciding. But what really did it was I was fortunate. I had a lot of good officers around me. And when I say good, like Bell, the one I mentioned earlier, I think he ended up like second or third rated lieutenant when he was my platoon commander in the entire 1st Marine Division with his fit rep. So I had phenomenal examples of leaders, both officer and enlisted, but the officers I had, Bell was one of them. I mean, was not only one of my mentors when I was young, he's actually the godfather for my twins.
Oh,
so that's how much I respected him. And Bell, he was not prior enlisted. He was reserve, and he tries to say he was prior enlisted. So we used to harass him all the time. Bell was your quintessential infantry platoon commander that would make every first lieutenant, second lieutenant mistake. Everyone. And we used to harass him for it. I mean, he tried cooking ramen noodles in the plastic wrapper one time. He was so tired. The water was boiling. And we're squad leaders are meeting with the platoon sergeant. We look over, and he's half awake, and he drops this packet of ramen noodles, still in the plastic, in the boiling canteen cup of water. And I'm just sitting there going, what in the hell? And I looked at the platoon sergeant, the other squad leaders. I'm like, what is he doing? And we looked over, and he finally looks up at us like, what? Sir, how the hell are you going to mix your flavor packet, man? It's inside the, what are you doing? I mean, he wasn't even awake. But Bell was, his humility and his care for the Marines, his love for the Marines was unbelievable. We were out on patrol exercise training. We were out for, I don't even know, I think we were on our 4th or 5th day. It's Camp Pendleton. It was hot, dead summer, probably 90 degrees out. We actually had an issue with resupply. We hadn't been resupplied in 2 days, so water was almost gone in everybody's canteen. And this is back in 92, 93 when we had the 2 green canteens, no Camelbacks, any of that, right? We had the H harness and stuff for our gear. And I remember coming in from patrol. I was out all day. They sent us out on an ambush to set up ambush for another platoon. And we come back. My guys are out of water. We were drinking out of a pond using the iodine tabs that we used to get issued. So we're drinking out of pond scum water. It was nasty. And we get back and I check in with him and I said, sir, we need water. We need water. We need food. We need chow. And he says, okay, resupply is trying to find us. Gunny hasn't. It's quiet. It's like 2 a.m. We're whispering and he says, hey, hold on a minute. And he takes his 2 canteens out and he hands them to me. And I'm shaking them. One of them is completely full. The other one is like 3/4 of the way full. And I said, sir, have you drank any water at all? No, I'll be fine. I said, no, I said, here, I'll take this full one. You need to drink some water. The guy would give up all of his food and water for the Marines.
Yeah.
He hadn't even eaten. We had 1 MRE for the 3 days. He still had, we used to have that chalk bar in there. It was called an oatmeal bar. He still had some of his food left and he gave me some MRE. I was like, no. So I had phenomenal leaders around me that I saw the caliber, the character, the integrity, the caliber. And I was drawn to the responsibility a little bit too.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Now, after all that, Iraq started, Afghanistan, 2001, Iraq right after that in 2003. You've done multiple deployments. What about those deployments was different from Somalia?
Well, Somalia, I hate to say I was a squad leader there, but it didn't feel like I was responsible for anything, even though I was. And we had some skirmishes here and there, but Somalia was pretty benign. It was quiet. Okay. It was right after the Black Hawk Down incident. So we were there in support. And when the Marines went ashore in Somalia, they didn't mess with us. I mean, they literally were afraid of us. They used to call us 2 nicknames, Black Boots and Tan Sleeves, because we still wore the black leather boots at the time. But they didn't mess with us. They messed with the Army a little bit, but they didn't mess with us. We had them on lockdown before we turned it over to the Army the year prior. But then you get into Iraq, and Iraq was different. Rules of engagement in Somalia were horrible. That was a major difference. Rules of engagement in Iraq we at least had. But, I will say one thing that was similar I didn't realize until later. You know how, deployments in combat, military sending is the last resort, right? When political means have failed, the military is the last resort. Sometimes our politicians forget, if we break glass and send the military ashore, we need to get out of their way, give them a clear mission, tell them what their task and purpose is, and then let them loose.
Yeah,
not let them loose to kill them, not that, but let them do their job. In Somalia, we were in more danger because of our own rules of engagement and because politicians were still involved in D.C. while we're sitting halfway across the world doing patrols in Somalia with empty magazines in our rifles.
I could imagine.
Yeah, those are the rules of engagement, and that endangers us. And then you go to Iraq, and it wasn't as bad. We had good rules of engagement, but then we did Fallujah. I was part of First Fallujah.
Phantom Fury.
Yeah. When we went into Fallujah, all was going good. We were cutting through them, and I think it was 2 weeks. We were already halfway through the town. We probably would have been done with Fallujah within another 2 weeks. And all of a sudden, we're about 3/4 of the way through the clear, and that's when Rumsfeld gave the word stop. And rumor, as I can't quote, but that's when General Mattis basically went off and said, "What are you talking about? We're almost done with this thing. We didn't want to do it in the first place." They were basically told to. Rumsfeld said, "Do it." Mm-hmm. But we had to go firm. We had to stop. And we're sitting in an urban environment with our asses hanging in the wind.
Well, I tell you what, in the fact that C-130s were dropping pamphlets over Fallujah for 3 months saying that we're coming in on this date so we could get all the innocent civilians out, and saying, if you're here on this date, we're coming to kill you.
That's how we knew. Anybody there, anybody still in Fallujah is a bad guy. And I can say that we still saw some women and kids. But our motto, no better friend, no worst enemy in Iraq, was so true. Because I'm not kidding. I saw this photo somewhere else later. I'll never forget seeing across the street 2 Marines in an alley. One of them is giving candy to a kid. He's kneeling down, handing candy to a kid. What was his battle buddy doing? His battle buddy was behind him, facing the other way, engaging the enemy. Mm-hmm. That was the definition. That picture right there defined no better friend, no worst enemy.
Now, fast forward, you went to Afghanistan as well. You've made your way around in your combat tours, and I know you're in one of my brother units. You're with the War Pigs. I'm an LAV guy. I love to shoot the 25 Mike, the 240 golfs. 6 scouts in the back, just able to do anything. The tip of the spear for the Marine Corps. Yeah. What was that like being an Echo Company commander for the War Pigs?
Probably my most rewarding deployment ever. As the platoon commander in Iraq and then an XO for my second deployment, I was fortunate that I had a lot of autonomy as a platoon commander. Probably because of my prior enlisted experience, I had a little bit more trust of my company commander and stuff like that. So my platoon ended up being detached quite a bit. Well, then when we went to Afghanistan, turns out my battalion commander at the time, Colonel Kasner, was in 2-5 when I was a corporal sergeant. He was lieutenant with Bell. Mm-hmm. Him and Bell were in the same class. Well, I didn't remember that, but he remembered me because I'd won Super Squad when I was in 2-5. It's kind of like, Ranger. You know what Super Squad is. So I'd won that, and he remembered me from the 96 Super Squad Championship. And I check into 3rd LAR as a company commander, and he's my battalion commander. Phenomenal guy to go to combat with and have as a leader because he let you do your job. He didn't micromanage. He let you do your job. And as a company commander in Afghanistan, the fight was different, especially the IED fight. In Iraq, the IEDs, they were scary as hell because they were ordnance IEDs. They would kill. But the enemy didn't like to stick around and fight you in Iraq. Well, in Afghanistan, they would stick around and fight you, but thank God the IEDs were not ordnance IEDs, unless you hit some old Russian anti-tank mines or something like that. But my company was detached a lot, and we were involved. We were almost in every part of that country And you know how LAR is. You're the most versatile. You carry some of the most firepower of any unit. I mean, you can traverse anywhere in the battlefield. You've got an amphibious vehicle that can do up to 70 kilometers per hour. I mean, across open terrain. You've got 25 millimeter Mike gun all the way down to machine guns, Sasser rifles. And the beauty part is I was a JTAC as well, so we always had air support wherever we went. So we carried a lot of communication, a lot of maneuverability, and a lot of firepower wherever we went. So LAR was used a lot. And I was a 2.5. I was a straight legger in 2.5. And I still remember the straight leggers like seeing the LAR guys showing up too, because they got big guns with them.
Yeah, but they always think we're a little bit weak because we're not straight leggers.
They can't no man, my boys could hike.
I can tell you, before we deployed on OIF-1, we were doing 20, 25-mile humps with your crew serves, up in the deserts of 29 Palms in those mountains. And
how many Marines in a straight leg platoon? 30 plus in a straight leg. How many scouts are in a LAR platoon? 16 total. 16. So you got 16 scouts to carry as many weapon systems
as 30
as a straight leg platoon has. Yeah, you actually have more because you have the medium machine guns that they don't have. So yeah, it's the LAR guys, man. They're tough. They got their job. They're tough. Plus all the crewmen. Most regulars don't know the crewmen are 03s as well. They're 0311s before they go
to school of infantry, and then they're like. They read a list of names, and they're like, welcome to right next door. Yeah. You're like, what do you mean right next door? And they're like, you got another 13 weeks in this school here. Yeah. And all your friends are going to line units, and, they're going to going to their squads, and you're stuck back in school for another 13 weeks. Yeah. I remember I was like, man, I want to leave. I want to go. I was ready to go to Iraq. I was just waiting. I was like, man, these guys are going to get there before me. Little did I know.
Be careful what you ask for in the Marine Corps, because you'll end up finding yourself somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I was only in the Marine Corps 9 months before 1st Marine Expeditionary Force picked me up. Our 2 C squares for General Mattis and General Conway, and watching the war unfold through a 3-star's eyes is a little bit different. Yeah. Because you get to see about how much your officers care about the enlisted. You get to see from the top down everything that goes on.
Yeah.
But with that, let me take a quick break and hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Thrivent is proud to support Warfighters United podcast. Let's create a financial approach that reflects your priorities and protects what matters most to you. Whether your retirement is far off or fast approaching, now's the time to plan. I'm Christopher Buck, a retired Marine and financial advisor with Thrivent, and I can help you work toward your goals with confidence. Call me at 517-525-2737 to get started.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Chris Buck, a Major Christopher Buck. He's a 26-year Marine, no better friend, no better enemy. I'm glad to have you with us, and we're gonna skip over to what you're doing now. Can you tell me about Thrivent?
Actually, I retired out of the Marine Corps in 2016, and I was recruited into financial services. And what we said earlier, I mean, 26 years in, 23 infantry, I know how to shoot, move, and communicate, count to 3, and eat crayons, right, as a Marine. So I end up in financial services, which I never expected. I have college degree, undergrad in sports med, and a master's in marketing and corporate strategy or something, leadership. I can't remember, from Michigan State. And I end up in financial services as a financial advisor. But I lucked out, man. I really did. If you're a veteran out there, if you're somebody that's about to get out, please look into financial service, because it is a great career. It gives you the ability to make an impact, serve others still, because you have clientele that you're helping them plan, and then the thank yous that you get from your clients, that's the reward ultimate. But Thrivent is a phenomenal company. They're the largest fraternal financial not-for-profit in the country, and they've been around for more than 120 years, and they take a full-service holistic approach to retirement planning. So the advisors were licensed to do just about everything from your protection, life insurance, health insurance, long-term care, disability. We can do all your investments, savings, college savings, retirement savings. We do business planning. We help with estate planning as well. So we can do a lot, and there's a lot of reward that goes into that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, when you were a recruiter, I know a lot of recruiters, they kind of get the short end of the stick when those infantry guys come around, and we kind of make fun of them and stuff. But, talking about the mental health aspects for a recruiter, I know you're a commanding officer for the recruiting center, and a lot of people
don't call
know.
me a recruiter. Those guys worked for a living. I'm not kidding, man. I have more respect for recruiters than probably any other. It doesn't matter Marine Corps or not. That is the most thankless job in the military right now.
Well, and, a lot of times, they're putting guys in, and during this war era, our guys are coming back that have been killed, and that recruiter sitting there, he's a part of them coming back because, they start feeling responsible, and I know you've probably had to see that, and I didn't really realize it until I met some of you guys, that the kind of mental stuff that your mind can play when you put a guy into the Marine Corps and then he ends up getting killed in a firefight or by an IED. You're still a recruiter in that area, so, you're marching them home. I know a buddy of mine from Portland that got killed, is that same kind of story, it was in Fallujah. His platoon stepped on a daisy chain, 3 IEDs, killed 10 out of 12 of them all in one shot, and they didn't even know it was there. And, bringing him home, and I know the recruiters, they step up for that kind of thing to make sure that Marine gets the honor and respect he deserves. Yeah,
it's suicide. I know shortly after I got to Lansing, the recruiting station, we had a kid, I may get the exact time wrong, but I think it was after he finished SOI, he committed suicide. And a lot of people don't realize that those recruiters, even though he was 4 or 5 months out of Michigan and through boot camp and everything, they still called back and wanted to talk to the recruiter as part of the investigation. So those recruiters are tied to these guys long into their career. Every Marine remembers their recruiters and their drill instructors, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sergeant Ferguson out of Owasso, Michigan was my recruiter in 1989, I think it was, because I was only 17. And I still remember him. I still remember arguing with him because I wanted to go infantry.
Yeah, so Sergeant Stolars is one of mine, and I was in 29 Palms right after my first tour, and guess who showed up at the chow hall?
Yeah.
Sergeant Stolars.
Yeah.
And he was working at the Navy hospital. I said, how did you get that gig?
You remember your recruiter because you hate him or you love him? Most of the time you hate him, but...
I ended up drinking some brews with him afterwards, but, I just want to give a shout out to those guys, and if you're a veteran that's having problems out there, you can go to VFW4646.com. Some of the links that we're talking about, and some of the, Focus Marines Foundation, Semper Fi Odyssey, 7-day programs for, that will help you transition. It'll help give you a support group. We got 988, you can always call that. That's our mental health number. If you're thinking about suicide, please reach out for help, because we would rather have you do that than to put you in the ground, know?
I tell clients, not even clients, I'm involved with a lot of groups, and I live in Mason. My office is in Mason. I'm a board member in the Chamber of Commerce. I'm in the Lions Club, and Sycamore Garden Club, VFW, American Legion there. And I'm always telling people, if you know of anybody that was in the service, if you think they're struggling, please give them my number. I'm not a counselor or anything, but I've been to combat. I've lost Marines to both combat and suicide. And I would rather somebody pick the phone up just to talk to somebody that understands. Because you know how it is when my dad asked me one time, maybe it was my dad, maybe it was my uncle, so what do you do every day in the infantry? What do you do? And I'm like, I don't know. We patrol, we train. Well, what do you do in training? We patrol. What do you mean you patrol? Man, how do you explain patrolling? We fire maneuver, close with and destroy the enemy by... What does that mean? I'm like, I don't even know how to explain what the hell I do every day. So a lot of times, like combat veterans will come back, and a lot of people, we won't talk about it sometimes because we don't want to relive it. But most of the time, it's, I just don't want to explain it to them because they don't understand. And I'm going to spend half my day trying to explain to them what I'm talking about because acronyms and everything else. But I always tell my clients and everybody, if you've got somebody that wants to, tell them to just call me. I'll get them in touch with somebody too. Maybe they just want to hear somebody that understands. I'm not going to coddle you or nothing, but man, I'd rather somebody pick up the phone. I had one of the best Marines I ever served with committed suicide, not this last December, but the December 4. And that one, I still am trying to figure out. I don't get it. He literally, by the way, you can find him. His name was Sergeant Christopher Chandler. And he was on, I believe, Time or People. He was the first amputee in the Marine Corps allowed to stay in active duty. He petitioned to stay in. He was allowed to stay in active duty. So he ended up on a couple magazines. He was interviewed, I believe, by 60 Minutes. Mm-hmm. And, the day he found out he was allowed to stay in, he got the message came in and went to his major at the time and said, "Hey, sir, did you see the message? I got approved. I'm staying in. It's good. Get ready to leave. You're going to jump school next week." But he graduated honor grad jump school. Yeah. I mean, the dude was a stud, man. And I did 2 deployments with him. He was my chief scout. So he was in my vehicle with me for that first deployment in Iraq. And I trusted that guy. I mean, he reminded me when I was a sergeant. He was he was good. But, out of nowhere, last December, not this last one, but the one before, I got a call from one of our guys, and he said, "Hey, sir, did you hear about Chandler?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He says, Chandler committed suicide." What? And it was like 2 weeks before Christmas. He had 3 kids. His oldest boy looks just like him. And I just thought, no way. This is a joke. But, in my company, Harry Company in Afghanistan, this is frustrating. We had, I think it was 49. We had 49 casualties. Only 2 of them left country, though. So minor wounds, 49 Purple Hearts, though. Legit battle wounds, IEDs, gunshot, things like that. But only 2 had to go back to country. Since then, we've had 4, I think it's 4 right now, deaths.
I tell you what, talking suicide, even the toughest of people can hit those bottom lows. Yep. You start mixing that with alcohol, drugs. Yep. Those lows get even lower, or if you have a traumatic brain injury and your mind just isn't making sense. And, I still believe from 2001 to 2007, until traumatic brain injury was on the spectrum for the military, you have 6 years of veterans, and IEDs started coming out in 2004. They started causing major damage. You have years of guys, back in Vietnam, they called it shell shock. You have years of guys that never even thought about TBI because it wasn't on the spectrum. So they go home.
We didn't know how to scan for it. We didn't know what to look for. I mean, you played sports, you had concussions before, and you kind of, all right, well, you shook it off, right? And you kept going. Well, and the worst part of it is you're a freaking Marine. You're not going to leave. You're not going to, my last IED I hit, I was in an LAV, so you know what the LAV can take. Yeah. We hit a very big IED in Afghanistan, and it was a K-kill on the vehicle, and it went off under the number 3 left tire, so the third one back, and when that went off, my turret was traversed to the right, so the turret, I was right over the number 3 tire, right? My entire crew got medevaced. I was the only one that didn't get medevaced. It turns out later I had a fractured tibia, I had some other things, and I wasn't going anywhere. I had 2 Marines on that crew that didn't want to go anywhere because we were engaged in a fight. Yeah. So Marines were our own worst enemy when it comes to that. But you're right. We didn't know how to look for, scan any type of symptoms from IEDs until, I don't remember my second deployment to Iraq either. I don't think it was until Afghanistan where they had this like TBI. It was a card that we used to carry, and it was a concussion grade 1 to 3, and the things to self-screen for. Corpsman always took care of that. But you're right. Right
at the end of our second deployment, they were doing that. Yeah, and and I still believe that 22 veterans a day, a certain percentage of those are undiagnosed TBI. They'd come home, their wives wouldn't understand why they can't remember stuff. They couldn't, they couldn't function, and they start feeling like they're a hindrance on their loved ones. Yeah. One thing leads to another. They start drinking a bottle or a fifth, and they still think they're a hindrance, and they decide to eat the bottom or the barrel of a gun, or do it in some other way. So like I said, if you're a veteran out there and you need help, there's a lot of places that will help you. You can go to VFW4646.com. My information's on there. You can email me at ericcalley@hotmail.com as well. We have a slew of veterans out there that would stop anything that they're doing to help you get the help you need.
If you're in and around Mason, pop into my office. I'm straight across from the courthouse.
Oh, yeah.
I got beer, I got coffee, I got soda, I got water. It don't matter. I got time.
So, on that, what's your average day look like when you're over at Thrivent? You're just talking about your office, helping people in those financial ways.
It's actually a lot of, it's a lot of networking. I mean, financial advisor really is, you're out in the community, you're all day you're talking to different, like today, I think I was in my office for a total of 2 hours today. And I was over in Perry, I was over in Owasso, Lansing. So it's networking. I was just talking, in fact, I need to throw it out there. Ron is the marketing guy for Marco's Pizza in Mason. They just started a thing for veterans. I almost forgot. If you go in and you ask for Ron at Marco's Pizza in Mason, you get a veteran discount card. I think it's up to 13% off or something, entire orders.
No,
They're going to be doing events. So yeah, but I'm out talking to groups, the VFW, the Sycamore Garden Club right now. Do you know there's only 5 Gold Star monuments in the whole state of Michigan?
No, I did not know that.
Maybe it's 6. This one's a 6. No, I think it's 5. Mason erected, the Sycamore Garden Club in Mason put up a Gold Star monument 3 years ago, and I helped them pay for it and fund it and so on. Well, now they never put the service plaques on it, and the bronze service plaques.
Yeah.
So now they're raising money to do that. So I was talking to the Sycamore Garden Club, but that's what a day in a life is.
So if somebody wanted to donate to the Sycamore Garden Club, where would they go?
They can actually, if they want to, the easiest way would be call me, come into my office, call me, or I don't have the phone number on me right now for them, but if they call me, I'll get them in touch.
Okay.
Her name's Helen, doing this project for them. But,
all right, so that's pretty much just go down to the office at Thrivent office right across from the courthouse in Mason.
Yep.
Now, you just started VetServe. VetServe is it's a whole big part function, specifically there to help veterans out.
Yeah.
And so kind of tell me about that, because they're going to be a future podcast. They're going to be on our podcast here in the future. Chris, tell me about Thrivent.
Yeah, lucky.
Or not Thrivent, but VetServe.
Lucky you get to hear me again, right? In about a month or so. I've known this other Marine, Vic Diaz, for a while now, probably 10 years now. And Vic was in, him and I overlapped a little bit. We never served with each other, didn't know each other while we were in. He was like, well, he's a realtor. And I've known him since I've been doing financial services. And he has a buddy named Ron Babby. Ron Babby is a mortgage guy. Ron specializes in VA mortgages as well. And Vic called me last summer and wanted me to meet Ron. And we sat down and they told me, listen, we want to start this group and we need you to be part of it. And what VetServe is it focuses on, I think, 2 areas that you just don't see very often as services for veterans, or you can't find it anywhere. One of them is the VA mortgage. And I've used a VA loan, I don't even know, probably 5 or 6 times. And it's always good. It's usually better than a conventional, right?
Usually 1.5 points better. Yeah.
And then you don't put money down, things like there's advantages to it. But I've always seen also at the end, well, this could have been better. Your VA loan, they could have done this. So Ron has done VA loans for so long that he has seen that over and over and over. And he finally got to the point where he's like, listen, we need to start helping these veterans understand how they can maximize their VA mortgage loan. So that's where it started. And he said, well, if we do that, we've got to have a realtor involved. And there's where Vic starts talking to Ron, a realtor that can help them find, sell properties. Because Marines, I had 2 houses at one point. I had one house that in California while I was living here. So we moved so often that we're renting out real estate, right? Well, then they said, well, if we're doing this, we've got to have somebody that can help them with financial planning. And that's where they brought me in. So the 3 of us put together what's called VetServe. We just started it the end of last summer. So we're still, I think we're off the ground now. We're running. We got some opportunities coming up. I think we're looking at partnering with VFW nationally to start getting the word out that this is a financial services, VA mortgage, real estate, veteran organization out there to help you. And we're going to be involved. I think it sounds like we're going to be involved in Vet Fest that happens in August.
I think that's in Howell, right?
Fowlerville Fairgrounds.
Fowlerville.
Yep. It's always Fowlerville Fairgrounds. We're going to be at Vet Fest as well. We're looking to be one of the sponsors for that. We still got to nugget that out, and we're looking at the sponsorship packages. But yeah, VetServe, it's a good organization. I'll tell you what, man, it's fulfilling.
Well, I'm looking to have you guys all on this next month here, and we got to finish up because I think my time is up. But Chris, I want to say thanks for coming on to the podcast, and giving your insight. And, if you are a veteran out there and you need anything or you have questions, you can always email me. You can go to vfw4646.com. A lot of the 7-day transitional programs will be on there. All of our information's there. Thrivent will be on there. Chris will be on there. We're going to pretty much on these podcasts, when we highlight something, we're going to put it on VFW4646.com. And that way you can go there and quickly hit a hyperlink and just go to it right there. I want to thank Small Business Association of Michigan for sponsoring this month of podcasts, and, and Thrivent.com as well. And we'll talk to you next month.